Hello and welcome everybody to episode 4 of our webinar series, Bridging the Gap, Indigenous-Led Clean Transportation for Saskatchewan's North. This is brought to you by Aurora Renewables and English River First Nation in partnership with Natural Resources Canada. I'm Mitch Carlson and I'll once again be your host and moderator for today's session. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that many of us are joining from the ancestral lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Nakota, Dakota Lakota, and Dene people, as well as the homeland of the Métis in Saskatchewan. If you are new to this series or have missed the first 3 episodes or would like to rewatch any of them, you can find the recording on Aurora's YouTube channel at the link shown here on the screen, youtube.com/bridgingthegap Pleased to be joined today by 4 of the approximately 4,000 satisfied EV owners in Saskatchewan. We've got Matthew Pointer, founder of the Saskatchewan Electric Vehicle Society, William Hale, board member at SaskEV and project manager for Aurora Renewables, Michael Rogers, manager of Aurora Renewables, and Frank Deck, owner of a Silverado EV pickup truck that he uses for a commercial water hauling business. Thanks very much for joining, everybody. Thanks. Good to have you with us.
Hi. Hello.
I think we'll start just with a brief introduction of who you are, where you're from, and just a little bit about your EV background story. So Matt, you're the first friend that I had that owned an EV, so I'll start with you and you can give a little bit of background about what turned you on to EVs.
Sure thing. I'll try to make it quick. So approximately 10 years ago, I happened to come upon just the renewable energy industry. And with that, I started considering putting solar panels on a house that I was building. And I thought it'd be pretty cool to be able to charge an electric car from those panels on my house. And I ordered a Tesla Model 3 forever ago, waited forever to get it. And as I was waiting for the car to arrive, I started looking around and I started to realize how far behind Saskatchewan was as far as infrastructure for electric vehicles. And then also just generally the myths and misconceptions about the cars, even back then, were still rampant. And so I thought it would be a good idea to organize, get a group of people together and form the Saskatchewan Electric Vehicle Association. So we formally became a nonprofit incorporated in late 2017, and we've been banging the pots and pans ever since for electric vehicles in Saskatchewan.
All right, great. Looking forward to hear more about that. Bill, I'll move on to you.
Well, I have also been an EV owner for almost 10 years. I had started working for a solar installer, and the president of the company couldn't stop talking about the electric vehicle that he was driving around Calgary summer and winter. And I couldn't believe that he was driving this little Fiat 500e in minus 25 weather, back and forth from home to work. But so eventually I became, I guess, convinced that he was telling the truth, and I was intrigued by this, and so I bought one. I bought a used Fiat 500e, and drove it summer and winter also in Saskatchewan, and it lived outside. There was not room in my garage for a car because all my tools were there, and so it worked fine with the limited range that vehicles have from sitting in the cold all the time, but still it was a great choice, and I have since owned a Nissan Leaf and a Chevy Bolt, and now I drive a Tesla Model 3 long range. And I guess over the course of that 9 years since I bought my first vehicle, I have also owned a used electric vehicle dealership in Saskatoon, and sold a number of vehicles into the community here in the year and a bit that I ran that business. But EVs do work here in Saskatchewan, and the infrastructure is getting better for charging, so you can actually use them for road tripping as well. So I've never looked back on my decision to move to EVs, and And so I'm very happy with that decision.
Great. Perfect. Thanks, Bill. Mike, we'll move on to you.
Thanks, Mitch. Mike Rogers. I'm the manager here at Aurora Renewables, and my experience with EVs would have started when I started this job here about a year ago, and kind of in line with what Matt said, and also Bill, is until you have one, you don't really start taking a look at the infrastructure and realizing. So if you extend kind of your observation of Saskatchewan, the further you go north, the worse it kind of gets, right? And so part of what we're doing with this Bridging the Gap initiative is to add that infrastructure and to be able to put it somewhere where historically maybe it doesn't end up in the north until way later on, right? Saskatchewan in general is probably behind other provinces, right? So the more remote you get, Saskatchewan's already behind, but the north is even further behind. So our goal with this initiative, and we learned this with our EV, because we have a Ford Lightning here as the Aurora vehicle. So our electricians, we do all our installs. They tow around a 20-foot enclosed trailer, and we've definitely found some limitations with the range. And then depending on the wind in the winter, all those kinds of things, we tried to get it up north to La Plonge, where we have our big flagship project going on, and we got as far as Meadow Lake before we realized it's not feasible. And so all that has kind of been the catalyst for this big initiative we're doing. And yeah, just excited to hear from some other folks and happy to be here.
Great. Yeah, looking forward to talking a little bit about more of that initiative and what we can do to break down that barrier for the north. Frank, we'll move to you.
Okay, well, I've kind of a newbie to this. I was looking for an EV starting in 2020, and I finally picked up my first one in 2022, a Model 3. I had to fly out to Abbotsford to find it was a private sale, because there just wasn't very much here in Saskatchewan for EVs at the time. So I flew out there, picked it up, drove it home, and I fell in love with it like right away. The only thing that hampered it a bit was that driving on these gravel roads, it would bottom out quite a bit, and so I decided to move up to a Model Y. So I bought a 22 Model Y, and came with a hitch. So I thought, well, I can start hauling my own water then. I had a 12-foot trailer with a 400-gallon water tank on it, and started hauling water for myself. And then my neighbors started seeing that, and asked what I was going to charge. So I told them, and they said, well, that's quite a bit cheaper than what the competition was charging. So I started hauling for some of them, and slowly built up a clientele. And then I figured I better get something a little bit bigger. And when the Silverado, I actually saw a test mule down when I was in Michigan, and took a look at it. The guy that was charging it, and he was talking about and how much he thought it was such a great vehicle. So I said, that's wants to be my next vehicle. So I was actually in Penticton and visiting a buddy, and saw one that was advertised in Kelowna at the dealership there, a brand new one. So I drove down and actually made the deal that day, and brought it home, and I've been loving the truck ever since. Now I'm up to hauling 3,000 liters of water, and going to expand up to 4,000 liters. And the thing is just unbelievable how much I love that thing. So I'll never go back to a gas vehicle again. Like I drive past gas stations now and just kind of chuckle at looking at the gas prices, right? And the nice thing is that electrical rates hardly ever go up in those kind of jumps like the gas prices do, right? So yeah, I'm very happy with it. And there's a couple of incentives that I have. That the one, if I charge after midnight, I save 6 cents a kilowatt hour. And then I bought a Grizzly charger, and with that now they're paying me 5 cents a kilowatt hour for just using their charger. So there's a couple of real good incentives to buy electric. So yeah, I'm very
Excellent.
happy with it.
Perfect. No, that's excellent. And I'm going to just drop the presentation now so that the screen will be a little bit bigger. But I want to follow up with a question with you first, Frank.
Hmm.
So you said you flew out to Abbotsford to get your first one. What was the rationale or decision process before that took you all the way out to Abbotsford? And why was the Model 3 the choice for you at the
Well,
time?
actually, I was looking for a Hyundai Ioniq 5, and those were very rare.
Okay.
I actually I went to the Hyundai dealership here in Regina, and I forget it was like $500 down or $1,000 down to hold one, but it was like just about 2 years before, that they were even starting to come out. So then I saw the Model 3, it was a used one, and I thought, well, I'm going to give it a try. So that's why. And Abbotsford, there was quite a few out in BC, and the one that seemed to be the best deal was out in Abbotsford. So yeah, I bought a one-way ticket and flew out, and he showed me a little bit about how to run it and that, but I learned a lot on the drive home, like that you put your destination in and it tells you exactly where to stop to charge, and yeah, so it was pretty seamless and I just couldn't believe the torque these things have, right? Compared to a gas engine, it's just almost instant. Like that thing will just put you back in your seat. So yeah, no, it's a it's a fun car to drive, and the Model Y I actually like more. Just seemed a little more roomy inside and higher up off the ground kind of thing.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay, excellent. And Bill, I'll go back to you now because you've owned a few different type of models. Let me talk about some of the decision process for why you selected those ones.
Well, the 500E I was just replicating what Dave had purchased, and it was in my price range. I think I paid $17,000 for it, and paid $350 to get a truck from Calgary and so on. So it was quite economical, and really it was, I'm an engineer, so I've kind of got a technical bent, and this was, a kind of a fun experiment, and so I didn't plan to keep it for a long, or I didn't plan to do anything other than have fun with it in the summer season. But after 3 months, my spouse said, "Look, you've driven your truck very little. In fact, it was 4 times in 3 months. So if you wanted to sell that, you could drive my vehicle when you need it for bigger range and cargo capacity." And so I did, and it started off as a bit of a lark and ended up being fun, and then it became a bit of a challenge. Okay, like my child rode a horse, and so I took her out to the the barn for that, and even in the dead of winter, I was okay. Um, but eventually it became a little bit, it was kind of inconvenient in some ways. It's a good urban car, but you gotta had to charge it up in between taking her out there for the first to ride, and then going out to pick her up again. I had to charge again in the deepest of winter. So I considered was considering something else, and then I realized that in Saskatoon you there was really not very much available in the way of used electric vehicles. Um, so I did a little bit of straw polling among people and my network, and I decided to start this used EV dealership called Your Next EV. And so I did that at the beginning of 2022, and I bought at auction in the U.S. and had these vehicles trucked up here. I bought vehicles sight unseen, but they're pretty well described in these auction. You know, it's this live auction, or and so they're pretty well described. And I never got a vehicle that I was disappointed in what I had bought. But one of the choices, I wanted vehicles that had service available in Saskatoon. So I wasn't going to buy something that was available in California, let's say, but couldn't be serviced here in Saskatoon. So that short list was the Fiat 500e, because they're Chrysler dealerships there. It's a Chrysler product.
Okay.
They can fix them. Same with Chevy Bolts and the Nissan Leaf. The Nissan Leaf was I had to go to Prince Albert to the Nissan dealer there to get it serviced, but that was fine. Anyway, those were some of my decision points, and generally I looked for vehicles that had long range. So I got the long range versions of the Leaf, and the Bolt at the time had almost the best range. It had, in the price range that I was selling vehicles, which was low 30s and below, it was the longest range vehicle. So so those were my decision factors in what I chose for the dealership. And in the end, I didn't sell enough vehicles to really maintain the business. So, I had an exit ramp available to me, and I took it after a year, sold the rest of my inventory, and moved on. And at that time, I then bought a Tesla Model 3 long range, and the decision making for that is that it was the longest range vehicle in, again, the price range I was willing to pay for it, and so I've been happy with that. But I think it's, I guess my advice to people is buy the electric vehicle that has the longest range that you can afford.
Right. We needed you and Frank to meet earlier, so you didn't have to run all the way out to BC.
Yeah.
I think
Mike,
I could have done a better job of marketing, but anyway, if you could do things again, then
well,
you could make a lot of improvements.
That's what this is all about here too, with the campaign, is to get more awareness out there. Mike, I'm going to turn to you. As I understand it, you drive a Lightning through work, but you're not a EV owner personally yet. Is that correct?
No, I don't have a personal EV, but definitely I've been in test driving, so I'm in the market. And just trying to figure out the economics of it, right? Because the Silverado for Frank is probably great if you're utilizing it for work. But if I'm just a commuter, it's nice to have that long range and maybe be able to drive a boat to the lake. But for the price tag, they're more expensive to get to that upper end. So to Bill's comment, get the longest range that you can afford. It's a matter of trying to figure out, what's going to work best for me. Driving the Lightning, it's a great truck, but it's not something I would try and tow a boat to the lake with just yet if I'm headed north. If the lake was maybe south or something, it might be more feasible, a little bit more charging infrastructure, a little bit less range anxiety. From what I understand, going north, there's a charger maybe at Prince Albert and then Waskesiu, which is kind of a little bit off the beaten path. So if I go to Emma or L'Orange, it's a little bit less feasible. Right. And that's just a consideration. Also, just driving with family in the winter. So definitely something is of interest, because 95% of my driving is just to and from work, driving the kids to events here in the city. So it makes a lot of sense, especially like to Frank's point with the gas prices being what they are and fluctuating. It's not stable, whereas electricity rates are pretty standard and stable. So as a city person, I think it makes a lot of sense to make the transition.
Right. Perfect. And
something I've actually thought about, sorry, just one more point. It might make more sense for me to rent a vehicle for the times I want to tow my boat to the lake or something, because it's very infrequent. But something I'm looking at, right? What are the day rates to rent a vehicle if you need to bring a boat to the lake?
Well, we'll have to touch base on this later, and we'll ask Frank a little bit more about the towing and range of the Silverado, because I know it is significantly better as far as specifications than the Lightning has, but we'll get back to that maybe in a moment. Matt, I'll go to you, and again, just talk a little bit about your decision and your willingness, like you said, to wait for a couple of years to get your first EV, and then how things have evolved since then.
Certainly. So my initial decision basically just came down to maximum range of the vehicle, as well as a charging network that would support me for long distance travel. I do drive west several times, summer and winter, for all kinds of different trips. Also, at the time I was planning several trips down to the United States with family and things like that, to go and see a bunch of touristy type things. And as a result of those trips out west and down south, I've probably driven the equivalent of nearly 250,000 kilometers in an electric vehicle over the last 7 or 8 years or so. And the great news is, not only have the vehicles increased in their range, no matter brand, but also now the charging infrastructure is all essentially being adopted under the same plug, which is the NACS plug. And that's really made life a lot easier. For those not familiar, there used to be 3 or 4 different plugs that were on the market at one point, and now it's all been streamlined into one single plug. And as such, it makes road trips much easier, much more streamlined and efficient, and it allows people to be a lot more comfortable in the way they plan their trip and so on. And and because of that, you can literally hop in any of the modern EVs that are on the market now within the last 2 or 3 years, knowing that you can plan your trip very, very easily. In fact, the car will actually navigate you from charger to charger as you go, and you'll have no issues. The car will actually tell you to slow down and turn the heater down slightly if you're maybe driving a little too let's say, with a little too much spirit under your wheels. That's one of the big benefits and awesome things about an electric vehicle, obviously, is acceleration and the way that they handle and so on. And that was initially one of the reasons that attracted me as well. But now, especially in the face of nearly $2 a liter gasoline, depending on your market and where you live, it's all about the economics. And so right now, if I didn't have solar on my house, I'd be probably paying somewhere in the neighborhood of $50 to $60 a month to drive my electric vehicle for day-to-day commuting and things like that. And just so happened to turn out that these electric vehicles are also the best winter vehicles that I've ever owned as well. So great heat, great traction, very, very user-friendly. The only difference is they just get a little bit less range in the winter. But I was easily able to deal with that, no problem, as the majority of my driving is local. However, I have done some long distance trips at -40 and -50. You just end up doing a few more charging trips or stops along the way. So, yeah, my experience has been positive overall, and I've owned a lot of different vehicles over the years from a lot of different manufacturers, and the electric stuff by far has been the best ownership experience.
Excellent. Okay, that's great. So we've heard lots about the benefits of EVs, including acceleration, power, torque, range is kind of getting equivalent. But I want to talk about some of the challenges that you've faced, because it can't all be rosy, I'm guessing. There must have been some things that you've had to overcome. So maybe just talk a little bit about, specifically in Saskatchewan, what some of the challenges have been, and what you'd like to see maybe change in Saskatchewan. So I'll start again just with you quickly, Matt, and we'll go backwards with that.
Sure. Well, I would say initially when I got the vehicle, the infrastructure was really tough. Obviously, we still have parts of the province that are somewhat underserved and need some more investment in things. But when I first got the car, I drove it all the way back from Calgary at the sales center on level 2 chargers back in whatever that was, 2018. So that road trip basically was, I want to say it was an 18 or a 20-hour road trip with level 2 chargers back then. That same road trip now with the fast chargers is the equivalent of maybe 7 or 8 hours, depending on the season and how fast I drive. So things have improved a lot. However, the wintertime thing, you are going to be charging more, and that's where we need to make more of a case for more infrastructure. Otherwise, the day-to-day stuff like the heat, the ability for the car to heat up, and the traction, and a lot of those kinds of things, I have not found to be so much of an issue. Yeah, I would say overall, it would be the infrastructure that could be increased, and so far it hasn't affected me a whole lot. But I know in other regions of the province, more rural areas, we certainly could see some big upgrades in the future. So
Great. All right, Mike, this cues you in here to talk a little bit more about this infrastructure gap here as well. I know we've talked in the past about, the lightning and the hauling that you've got. Maybe just tell a little bit more about some of the stories that you've had with, including that one where you tried to get it to La Planche or others, and then also what you're trying to do to break down that barrier with Aurora.
For sure. Yeah. It all started with, buying the EV because it's on brand with what we do, right? Renewable company. And so we're adamant that we're going to figure this out and utilize this truck for all the work we do. And so with that comes testing the limits, right? So how far can we take it? What impact does the wind have? Speed, towing, whether it's just a person in the vehicle. So we've been testing all of these. So we have a need for, when we're doing residential installs, we have a 20-foot enclosed trailer, and we pushed it as far as bigger. Out to Demont, we have a big project we're doing at Batoche there at Demont Lodge. And so we've used it to go back and forth, and we found the wind is a big factor, especially when you have a trailer, if you're driving into a headwind, but also speed. So I also drove it. We did the conference there where I met Matt out in Regina. And when I drove out divided highway, everyone drives usually 130. I think I drove 120 on the way out, and I left with 100% battery, and I showed up there with, I believe it was like 13% or something. So on the drive home, after talking to all the EV enthusiasts, they're like, "Oh no, that's not a very aerodynamic truck." So the wind resistance at 120 is considerably different. It's like a inverted bell curve, and so they suggested I drive like 100, 120, or 110 on the way home. So I did that, and it used substantially less battery. It was like I left with less battery, and I got home with more battery. So I don't know. I didn't do the math to see exactly what the difference was, but it was quite a bit. And then that brings me to the trailer. So it tows the trailer, no problem, tons of torque, so capable. And we usually have like anywhere from 3,000 to 6,000 pounds that we're pulling with that enclosed trailer. It has a V-nose on it, so it's a little bit more aerodynamic, but I mean, you can feel the wind. So it definitely adds quite a bit, and it reduces the range considerably, but we can safely make it out to bigger, which is I think 220 kilometers or something like that. So we make it out there, but it takes every bit of range that we have, and we can drive home with the truck. So we can drive the trailer out, and then we can get back home at the end of the day if we leave the trailer on site. And then we can charge it fully, drive back out to the job site, and then get the trailer home. So we've had to learn ways like that, right? So if we can get all our equipment to site, leave it there, get home safely, charge it up. We've learned kind of how to work around that. But if we have to take the trailer out and back in a day, then we would need a level 3 charger, and we'd have to leave it there. We'd have to get a certain amount of charge before we can bring it home. So other than that, but I did want to touch on one point too, because Matt mentioned the winter time. What we've noticed is like there's no warm up because there's no motor. It's not a combustible engine, so we don't have to wait for the heat. It's instant heat, right? So you turn it on, it's instantly blowing heat, and you don't have to wait for the vehicle to warm up. So that's been one real noticeable benefit that I would say. And then it's kind of like it's a lot nicer. You just hop in and the heat's going like instantaneously. So, and you can drive. And sometimes we leave it right through the weekend, right?
Right. And so as part of the program here with Aurora, you'll be looking to put chargers up into the north, into some of the English River First Nations communities, and you're talking with your home community, Lac La Ronge Indian Band here too. What are you expecting maybe by the end of this year to see for infrastructure that might help you guys get that range for your Lightning a little further?
For sure. So our Lightning in particular has kind of been the catalyst for like this whole initiative, because we sent one of our crew guys up there to bring some material up to our La Plonge site, and this would have been last summer. And he got to Meadow Lake, and there was supposed to be a charger there. It wasn't working, and he realized really quickly, like, well, I'm not going any further, because once I leave Meadow Lake, I have to make it to site, and then it's going to be, because there's no faster chargers. So the chargers have different levels, right? There's a level 1, level 2, and then there's just your regular 120 volt plug-in, and that takes a lot longer. So we'd have to charge it for a week or so before we could get it home. And so we made the decision to, charge it in Meadow Lake, turn around, head back. And so our goal with this initiative is to put that infrastructure in the north, some of it in Beauval, some of it at our La Plonge site. So we're going to have a variety of level 2s and level 3s, but to be able to bring these to the community so they don't have the upfront cost of this. And, suddenly once the infrastructure is there, then people can actually feasibly look at, should I get a vehicle? So maybe someone from community, they don't ever leave community and they drive a lot. Well, they could have an EV in the community, it kind of opens that door, right? Because right now it's like, do I buy one? Well, probably not, because there's no infrastructure. But now that the infrastructure is there, it gives people that option to look at it. And if the market starts to grow, like even talking to all the dealerships, right, through this initiative, I've talked to multiple dealerships now, and they don't carry stock or inventory because the sales aren't high enough. There's not enough uptake. But part of that is because of the infrastructure. And a lot of Saskatchewan's population is in the north. So if we can open that door, creating or getting rid of that range anxiety, making it more feasible for people that just stay in community as well, then I think you'll see more EV sales. And then when you're working with the vans in particular, they have a lot of, say they drive elders to medical visits, things like that. So they have a lot of, they have a large fleet through all the different departments, and it could save the nation, tens of thousands of dollars in fuel. If we can have the right infrastructure in between the different communities where they're utilizing these vehicles daily.
Great. Yeah, I mean, we could talk about this for a while here, but I guess the message that we provide to any of the viewers here listening to this is that if they are interested in getting infrastructure into the community, whether that's Northern First Nation or any communities in Saskatchewan, don't hesitate to reach out and talk to us about talk to Aurora about some of the initiatives and incentives that are available to support that infrastructure development. Frank, there's a question that has been directed to you here from the audience. You had mentioned that there's lower rates after midnight. So are you on a special Sask Power program for that? And then the other question to that is Grizzly Charger. Just maybe talk a little bit about that incentive a little bit more that you get from Grizzly.
Well, from Grizzly, yeah. Like I bought the charger outright. It was $1,000, but it's an 80 amp charger. So I had to upgrade my panel in the garage to a 200 amp panel, and I had it for about 4 months, and then they came out. I noticed it on Facebook that they'd come out with this incentive for past owners, which is me, or new owners. They start you out at 4 cents a kilowatt hour that they actually pay you. So you can go on their app and it'll tell you how many dollars you saved that night. And then you can withdraw the funds whenever you want. And now I'm, because of how much kilowatt hours I'm putting into the truck every night, I'm up to 5 cents a kilowatt hour off now. And I can go all the way up to 10 cents a kilowatt hour off after a certain amount of kilowatts that I put into the truck. Like they just keep accumulating. And I think I'm at 4,000 kilowatt hours right now that I've put into the truck. So once I get to, I think it's 10,000 kilowatt hours, then they bump you up to 10 cents a kilowatt hour. And then the other one is called EV.com, and it's dot, not dot, it's DOT. And it was a program that had come out, and it's to do with it's more of a study. And that one, like they said, if you charge after midnight, between midnight and 8 a.m., they will send you a PayPal every month for 6 cents a kilowatt hour. So that's how that one works. And
that's through Sask Power, is that?
No, it's a different,
Okay.
it's called EV dot, it's EVDOT and then .com.
Okay.
And it's just it was a program that I had found on Facebook as well. And I signed up for it, and and it's more of a study because it's not available anymore.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know if they'll ever reintroduce it again, or if they had a certain amount of people that they wanted to try it with, and I was one of the lucky ones to get in on it.
Okay.
And so they pay me a base of 10 cents or $10 a month, and then 6 cents a kilowatt hour. And they have to be able to see what my truck is doing like every night, so they're tied into I have to share my info from the truck to this site, right?
Right.
And so every month I'll get a PayPal deposit, varying amounts. The most I think was $100 and some for the month, but I put on average over 5,500 kilometers a month on my truck. So So I'm actually up to 73,000 kilometers on it now, and it's only 13 months old. So
Okay.
yeah, it saves me a lot of money.
Right.
Like before the incentives, my power bill is about $450 a month.
Right.
And then when you take off the incentives, it knocks it down quite a bit, right? So
I'm going to share a slide here that is kind of inspired by you, Frank, here. And this was my assessment of a Silverado 1500. This is the work truck version versus the EV work truck extended range. And, because a lot of times we hear EVs and it's the immediate thing is kind of like, oh, this is environmental benefit only kind of thing. But there's a lot of other benefits here. So if you look at this, they've got better power output, better horsepower, better torque, better towing capacity, better acceleration. And because they're more efficient, it saves you money. And of course, then there is the environmental benefits. But through all of that, I was figuring like if you finance this with zero down for 7 years, and compared that because your cost of fuel is so low, and this is for an average driver of about 16,000 kilometers um, per year, and Sask power rates, and the average gasoline price of about $1.60 a liter. Your 10-year cost of ownership is over $10,000. So, not only are you getting all these other performance benefits, but like you said, you're getting these savings as well. So the big barrier here is, maybe just trying to get over that range anxiety, or maybe we're even close to getting over that. And the biggest thing is, again, building on some of this awareness and promoting that. So I'll have to have you
yeah.
check these numbers with me, and I'd like to put in yours, I guess, at some point because you drive a significant amount more than what this would say. So,
Yeah, and the nice thing is too, you always leave with a full tank, right?
right,
Leave your garage with a full tank. What they say, a full tank. So
right.
so
So
that's the nice thing.
we just got another note here that EV.energy that you had mentioned was a Sask Power program
Okay.
at one point. So it was
Okay.
initiated through them, but yeah, it
Through
sounds
Sask
like it
Power,
was a
yeah.
trial one. So
Okay.
yeah, just we're getting close to the end here. I just want to remind the audience that if they have any questions or comments, please drop it in the chat and we will get to them here. But I wanted to give a moment, circle back to Bill and Matt to talk about any upcoming events that you might have for SaskEV and Saskatchewan Electric Vehicle Association. So Bill, we'll get back to you. Can you talk about maybe some events in Saskatoon area that people should look out for?
Yes, SaskEV is based in Saskatoon, and we have an event for Drive Electric Earth Month coming up on May 10th. It's at the Alice Turner Library in the city here, and from 1 o'clock until 4:30 on May 10th. And so we will have a number of people there with board members primarily of SaskEV with their electric vehicles, and people will be able to go for rides in those. We're not offering test drives because that's just a little complicated with personally owned vehicles, but test rides. And so there will be people there with a Lightning, and I think a Cybertruck will be there. There'll be some Model 3s, Chevy Bolt, uh, Hyundai Ioniq 6, and a bunch of other vehicles. But there will also be a series of speakers on topics that are relevant to people interested in getting an EV. So that's a main event of ours. We have three events a year primarily. The second event is we have a booth and a presence with cars at the Rock 102 Show and Shine on Sunday, August 16th, all day. I think it's from 10 until 4. And then in the fall, in late September or early October, there'll be another Drive Electric Earth Month event, and we have held it at TCO Place in the parking lot across the way for several years, and I think it's going to be there this year. The date is yet to be confirmed, but it's an outdoor event with all kinds of vehicles there. Tesla often comes. We have several dealerships there, usually that bring vehicles, and sometimes there are test drives. But I encourage listeners to join our SaskEV Facebook group, and because we'll be posting those events with more detail there.
All right, great. Matt, how about you? What's the next on your agenda for SaskEV Association?
Sure. Spark Group is based out of the Regina area. So we host an event in Regina, which is coming up on Saturday, May 30th, called Electrify Regina. And it's very similar to what William was speaking to there about a publicly accessible, free admission event for the general public to come out and talk with electric vehicle owners about their experience driving electric. And essentially, it's also sort of a trade show where we have presentations, educational bits, and it also allows people to take test drives from local car dealers and basically taking anything related to electrification on the other side. Another great thing is Plug and Drive, which is a national level group that basically specializes in allowing the public to test drive EVs. Will be available at our event as well. So we'll have a minimum of 3 electric vehicles of a variety of different brands, along with dedicated test drivers and people on staff from Plug and Drive to take people from the general public out in these vehicles. Also, we'll have our local dealers and a bunch of other folks with vehicles on display giving test drives as well. And so if you are in the market for an EV, or if you're curious about it and maybe just kind of dipping your toe in the water to figure out whether this will work for you, if you're in the Regina area, yeah, definitely come on down and take in some education. Get the real facts about these EVs. Obviously, there's a massive amount of misinformation online about these vehicles that somehow grow legs and start to run around our communities. And we're here to nip that stuff in the bud and get rid of that stuff, because there's obviously great potential in these, and there's so many great reasons to drive electric in Saskatchewan. And we're here to host anyone else who's willing to work with us or attend the show and check things out. So we really hope to see a lot of people that day. We're also going to be offering a e-bike as a raffle for anybody who comes through the door that morning. So definitely come down and check us out and come spend some time in an electric car.
Great, yeah, and those both events sound great. So one in Saskatoon coming up next month, and one in Regina, and then you've also got some other events that throughout the year, Matt. Is that true?
Yeah, we do. So we do a bunch of other events. We actually will be at Majestic's car show this weekend in Regina as well.
Okay.
We'll have 3 electric vehicles set up there as well for people to speak with owners just about driving electric. Also, we'll be at the Cathedral Village Arts Festival in Regina, and that will be, I believe, the 23rd, if my memory serves me correctly. But basically, the weekend prior to our big show on Saturday, May 30th. So if you're coming up to the Cathedral Village Arts Festival, take a look for us in the booth. Cathedral Village Arts Festival is now one of the biggest cultural events now in the city, and is really, really cool on multiple levels. So if you want to come out and check that out. And then we'll also be at the Access Communication Show and Shine Labor Day long weekends coming up early fall. And same thing, we'll be hanging out with all the muscle car folks, basically telling them why our cars are faster than theirs, and they don't. We have some spirited conversations with those folks, and everybody is all on the same team. But yeah, we have many events that we're going to be planning, and then we'll have some pop-up events in Wascana Park as well. So if you want to check us out on Facebook or Instagram, Saskatchewan Electric Vehicle Association is who to follow, and we'll be advertising all that stuff on there as well. We offer education through those social media platforms as well. So if you have any questions, check us out online, and we'll always be willing to answer people's questions and help them out.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Matt. Appreciate it. And as always, the time here has flown by, so we are reaching our end. So we'll have to call it a wrap on the panel today. But thanks, guys, all of you for joining. Appreciate the conversation and the information. If the audience has any further questions, again, don't hesitate to send them in, and we'll do our best to answer them. And yeah, please share this going forward. Our next episode we've got scheduled for next month, Wednesday, May 27th, and this is some additional support in helping if you're interested in buying a zero-emission vehicle. We've got two individuals here who can help you out. We've got Bezad Mohayer from evsearch.ca. He runs a website that has a bunch of specifications and a database of all the different EVs that are available in Canada, including some information about used vehicle market and some upcoming potential for Chinese EVs coming into the market. And we're also bringing back Kenneth Bacor, who hosted our EV 101 here last month. He's going to come back and share a little bit more details on his EV Revolution show and all the test drives that he does, and maybe make some recommendation of what he feels are the best vehicles for Saskatchewan. So tune into that next month. You can register again on our website here. So thanks very much for everyone participating and joining in today. And again, thank you to the panelists. Very much appreciate your time. You guys did a great job.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Mitch, for hosting.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks for the invite.
Thanks, guys.